Luca was 23, a recent graduate drifting between uncertain jobs and half-formed dreams. He had always been a little introverted, more comfortable behind his laptop than in crowded rooms. But life has a way of surprising you, and his surprise came one breezy afternoon at a coffee shop near the university library. He had gone there only to kill time, with headphones in his ears and a lukewarm cappuccino in his hand, when she walked in. Her presence was almost cinematic. A slim girl with straight black hair cascading just below her shoulders, wearing a cream cardigan and a floral skirt. She ordered her drink with a soft, polite voice that carried across the cafe in a way that made Luca instinctively look up. Her face was flawless. Not in a polished, artificial way, but in the way that made you doubt whether you were looking at someone real. Almond-shaped eyes, a small, elegant nose, lips that seemed made to curve into a half-smile that could disarm anyone. She sat at the table across from him. Alone. For a while Luca debated with himself. He wasn't exactly smooth with women, and most times he avoided even trying. But this girl radiated something different. She seemed approachable yet out of reach, like a painting you want to touch but shouldn't. He pulled out his courage like a coin from a forgotten pocket and spoke. Excuse me. That book, you're reading Murakami, right? He said, noticing the cover. She looked up, startled at first, then smiled gently. Yes. Norwegian Wood. Have you read it? Yeah, a while ago, Luca replied, trying not to sound too eager. I liked the way it mixes reality and dreams. Very surreal. Her eyes brightened. Exactly. I love that feeling. It's like walking into someone else's memory. And just like that, conversation flowed. They talked about books, films, even little things like their favorite late-night snacks. She introduced herself as Aiko, a 22-year-old exchange student from Japan, studying literature. Her voice carried a softness that drew Luca in. He found himself hanging onto every word. By the time she left, scribbling her number on his napkin with quick strokes of her pen, Luca felt as if the air itself had shifted. Something in him stirred, something both exhilarating and terrifying. The following weeks were a blur of texts and coffee dates. Sometimes they walked by the river, the reflection of city lights rippling in the water while they shared stories about childhood, about hopes, about nothing at all. Luca found himself laughing more than he had in years, smiling without realizing it. Aiko had this way of tilting her head when she listened, of letting silences stretch without awkwardness. He admired her curiosity. She always asked questions that cut deeper than small talk. What scares you most about the future? Or, do you think love is something that finds you, or something you build? Luca didn't have all the answers, but he didn't need them. Being with her felt like stepping into clarity after years of fog. He started falling. Yet, there were odd moments. Once, after a week of steady texting, Luca met her at the park. She greeted him with a smile, but something was off. Her laugh sounded a little higher, her rhythm of speaking slightly different. He chalked it up to mood, or maybe his imagination. Another time, he swore she didn't remember a story he had told her the week before, about his disastrous attempt at cooking lasagna. When he brought it up again, she blinked, confused. "Oh, really? You told me that?" she asked with a polite chuckle. It stung, but Luca shrugged it away. People forget. The strangest moment came one evening when they were sitting outside the cafe where they first met. The air was cool, and she wore a light blue sweater. Out of nowhere, she leaned closer and whispered, "You're different from what I thought." "What do you mean?" Luca asked, curious. She hesitated, then smiled almost mischievously. "Never mind. I'll tell you another time." He laughed it off, but the words stuck in his mind long after. The turning point came about 2 months in. Luca had gone to a bookstore downtown to surprise Aiko with a novel she had mentioned wanting. As he scanned the aisles, he suddenly spotted her at the far corner, flipping through a poetry collection. He smiled, ready to sneak up and say hello. But then, before he could, another voice called out. "Aya, you're here too." Luca froze. "Aya." Another girl approached, identical in every way. Same face, same hair, same delicate frame. If it weren't for the slightly different shade of sweater, he would have thought he was hallucinating. The two embraced like sisters, giggling softly. Luca's mind reeled. He stepped closer, heart pounding, trying to make sense of it. Both girls turned at once. Their almond eyes widened in unison. "Luca," said the one holding the poetry book, "his Aiko." The other girl tilted her head, studying him with a sly smile. "So this is him, huh?" Luca stammered. "Wait, there are two of you?" The one with the smile crossed her arms playfully. "I'm Aya, Aiko's twin." Aiko's cheeks flushed. "I was going to tell you. I just didn't know how." Luca's world tilted. Memories flashed through his mind. The strange shifts in behavior, the forgotten lasagna story, the differences in laugh and tone. All the puzzle pieces clicked together, and the picture left him dizzy. Sometimes, he hadn't been talking to Aiko at all. Aya winked at him. "You've probably talked to me a few times already." "Sorry about that." Luca blinked, words failing him. "What do you mean?" "Well," Aya said casually, "sometimes Aiko's busy. And sometimes I'm curious. So we switched. Just for fun." Aiko looked down, embarrassed. "I told her not to. But she. It wasn't that bad, was it?" Aya interrupted, teasing. "I bet you didn't even notice." Luca's chest tightened. He thought about the moments of dissonance, the way he sometimes left their meetings confused. He thought about the intimacy of sharing his fears, his dreams, possibly not even with the girl he was falling for, but her twin. He had no idea what to say. Luca barely slept that night. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, his phone resting on his chest. His mind replayed the bookstore scene like a broken record. Two identical girls. One was the Aiko he adored, the other an identical twin who had, without his knowing, stepped into her place, borrowing her role like a part in a play. He felt cheated, but at the same time, curious. Aya's grin lingered in his thoughts. The way she looked at him, bold, playful, unbothered by the consequences of her little masquerade. Aiko was quiet, gentle, deliberate. Aya was sharp, teasing, almost dangerous. And he realized with a pang of guilt that sometimes, when he thought something felt different in their conversations, it wasn't just a bad day. It was her. The thought made him feel sick. The next day, Aiko texted him. "Can we talk?" They met at the riverside bench where they had shared so many evenings. She looked nervous, fiddling with the hem of her cardigan. "I'm sorry," she began immediately, bowing her head slightly in that formal, graceful way. "I should have told you from the beginning. Aya is my twin. We're both here studying. And sometimes she plays tricks." Luca clenched his jaw. "Tricks?" "Aiko, she pretended to be you. I shared things with her, personal things, thinking it was you." Her eyes softened with guilt. "I know. She went too far. But she's always been like that. Curious. Impulsive. She thought it was harmless." "Harmless." Luca laughed bitterly. "I told her about my family. About my fears. And she just went along with it." Aiko looked pained. "She admires you, Luca. That's why she did it." That sentence hit differently. Admired him? Was Aya interested? Luca shook the thought away. "I don't know what to think any more." They sat in silence for a while, the river's quiet rush filling the space between them. Finally, Aiko whispered, "Do you still want to see me?" The answer should have been simple. He liked her. He had fallen for her. But now, every memory came with a question mark. Which moments belonged to Aiko, and which were Aya's stolen ones? "I need some time," he said. His voice cracked on the words. Aiko nodded slowly, her eyes glistening but calm. "I understand." Days passed. Luca buried himself in work and avoided both sisters, but it was impossible to erase them from his mind. Then, one evening, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Hey, stranger. It's Aya. Don't be mad. Meet me." He hesitated. Every logical bone in his body told him to ignore it. But curiosity won. They met at the same coffee shop where he had first seen Aiko. Aya walked in wearing a leather jacket over a simple black dress, her posture confident, her smile unapologetic. If Aiko was soft spring sunlight, Aya was a midnight spark. "You came," she said, sliding into the chair across from him. Luca crossed his arms. "Why did you do it?" Her grin widened. "Because I wanted to know what kind of guy could make my sister blush every time her phone buzzed." "That's not an excuse." "Maybe not. But it's the truth." She leaned forward, resting her chin on her hand. "And I have to say, I see why she likes you." Luca felt heat creep up his neck. "Aya, this isn't funny. I'm not joking." Her voice dropped, more serious now. "When I talked to you, it didn't feel like an act. You were real. Honest. Most guys just try to impress me or Aiko. You didn't." He swallowed hard, torn between anger and intrigue. "You shouldn't have crossed that line." Aya shrugged. "Maybe. But aren't you glad you got to know me, too?" The question lingered in the air, dangerous and tempting. From that night, things grew complicated. Aiko continued to see him, careful, kind, trying to rebuild his trust. But Aya appeared too, sometimes unannounced. She'd pop up at the library, at the cafe, even once at his apartment door, claiming she just happened to be nearby. Luca found himself in a tug-of-war. With Aiko, he felt peace. With Aya, he felt fire. One evening, the three of them ended up together, an accident that turned into a storm. Aiko had invited Luca to a small art exhibit. Aya showed up halfway through, smirking like she owned the room. "Didn't know this was a date," Aya teased, slipping beside them. "It isn't," Aiko said quickly, her cheeks turning pink. Aya looked at Luca, her eyes glinting. "You don't seem so sure." Luca froze. The tension was thick enough to choke on. For the rest of the night, Aya kept close, making sly comments, while Aiko grew quieter and quieter. Afterward, outside the gallery, Aiko pulled Luca aside. "I'm sorry. She shouldn't have come." "It's not your fault," Luca said softly. But deep down, he knew things couldn't continue like this. The line between the sisters was blurring, and he was stuck in the middle, unable or unwilling to push one away. The breaking point came a week later. Luca received a late-night text from Aiko. "Can you meet me?" "It's important." He rushed out, heart pounding, and found her waiting at the riverside bench. She looked troubled, her hair tied back, eyes shining in the streetlight. "Luca," she said, voice trembling, "I need to know, do you really like me? Or are you confused because of Aya?" His chest tightened. "Of course I like you." "But—" she pressed gently. He hesitated. He thought about Aya's boldness, her teasing, the thrill she brought. Then he thought about Aiko's warmth, her quiet way of making him feel safe. "I don't know," he admitted at last. "I'm trying to figure it out." Her eyes watered, though she forced a smile. "That's what I feared." Before Luca could respond, footsteps approached. Aya emerged from the shadows, as if the universe itself had conspired to trap him. "You're talking about me, aren't you?" Aya's tone was sharp but not without a hint of hurt. Aiko stiffened. Aya, this is between us. No, Aya shot back, crossing her arms. It's between the three of us. He's been spending time with me, too. Don't act like it's only your story, Aiko. Luca's stomach dropped. Aya, stop. But Aya's eyes locked on his. Tell me the truth, Luca. When you were with me, did it mean nothing? The night air hung heavy with silence. Aiko's face paled. Luca's mind raced. He had never imagined falling in love could turn into such a battlefield. The silence after Aya's question was unbearable. The river gurgled quietly nearby, the street lamp buzzed, and Luca could hear his own pulse thudding in his ears. He wished he could rewind time, go back to that first day in the cafe, when life was simple and all he saw was Aiko and her quiet, captivating smile. But reality now was tangled, a knot of affection, guilt, and temptation. Aiko was the first to speak, her voice brittle. So it's true. You let her take my place, and you didn't stop her. Luca winced. I didn't know. I thought it was you. Aya folded her arms, chin tilted defiantly. Don't put all the blame on me, Aiko. He liked talking to me. If he didn't, he would have noticed something was wrong. But he didn't, because we connected. That's not fair, Aiko whispered. Luca felt torn in half. Enough. Both of you. This isn't a game. He turned to Aya, his voice firmer. You shouldn't have tricked me. It wasn't right. Aya's expression flickered, defiance softening, just for a moment. But she masked it quickly. Maybe not. But at least I was honest about it in the end. That jab hit Aiko hard. She looked down, her hands twisting in her lap. I didn't want to lose you, Luca. That's why I didn't tell you sooner. The weight of their words hung heavy. Luca stood, restless. I need space. I can't think like this. He walked away before either of them could stop him. 4 days, Luca avoided both sisters. He kept his phone on silent, ignored their texts, and drowned himself in work. Yet every idle moment, his mind replayed their faces, the softness of Aiko's sorrowful smile, the sharp gleam in Aya's eyes. He realized something uncomfortable. He was drawn to both. To Aiko's warmth and steadiness, yes. But Aya's unpredictability sparked something in him too, something he couldn't ignore. And that scared him more than anything. One afternoon, fate intervened. Luca was in the library, trying to focus on a project, when he spotted Aiko in the reading corner. Her hair was tied back, a loose sweater draped over her shoulders. She looked tired, her eyes shadowed as she scribbled notes. Something inside him softened. He couldn't keep avoiding her. He walked over. She looked up, startled, then forced a small smile. Hi. Hi, he echoed awkwardly. They sat in silence for a moment before Luca spoke. I'm sorry. For everything. I shouldn't have disappeared. Aiko's voice trembled. It's okay. I understand. I don't want to be compared to her all the time. Luca reached across the table, hesitating before touching her hand. You're not her. You're you. That's why He stopped himself, but the words were already burning his throat. That's why I fell for you. Her eyes widened. You mean that? He nodded. And for the first time in weeks, she looked relieved, even happy. They spent the rest of the afternoon together, quiet but comfortable. For a brief while, Luca felt the storm calm. Maybe he could fix things. Maybe he could draw a clear line between Aiko and Aya, and finally follow his heart without hesitation. But life has a cruel sense of timing. The next evening, Aya showed up at his apartment. She leaned against the doorframe, a sly smile on her lips. You've been avoiding me, she said. Luca sighed. Aya, I don't think this is a good idea. Why not? She stepped closer, her perfume faint but intoxicating. We had something, too. Don't deny it. He shook his head. We didn't. What we had was a lie. Her smile faltered. Was it? When you told me about your childhood, about feeling invisible in your own family, was that a lie? Because it didn't feel like one. It felt real. Luca's chest tightened. He hated how easily she cut through his defenses. I thought I was talking to Aiko. Aya's voice softened. But you weren't. You were talking to me. And you opened up in a way most people never do. That wasn't an accident, Luca. He swallowed hard, fighting the pull he felt toward her. Aya, you're making this impossible. Or maybe I'm just showing you the truth. She stepped even closer, her eyes locking with his. You like me, too. Admit it. Luca's breath caught. For a moment, the air between them crackled, and he almost leaned in. But he pulled back, shaking his head violently. No, I can't do this. Not like this. Aya's expression hardened, though he caught the flicker of hurt in her eyes. Fine. Keep lying to yourself. But remember, you didn't notice the difference. Maybe that says more about your feelings than you want to admit. With that, she turned and walked away, leaving Luca in a storm of confusion. The days that followed were chaos. Luca tried to focus on Aiko, tried to hold on to the gentle love that had first drawn him in. But Aya's words haunted him. He remembered their conversations, the way she challenged him, teased him, pushed him out of his comfort zone. Those hadn't felt fake. They had felt raw, alive. And the worst part? Aya was right. He hadn't noticed the difference. That realization gnawed at him. Was he really in love with Aiko, or with both of them? The tension reached its peak during a summer festival in the city. Lanterns lit the streets, music floated through the air, and Luca had agreed to go with Aiko, thinking it would be a chance to reaffirm their bond. She wore a light blue yukata, her hair pinned with delicate ornaments, and she looked breathtaking. For a while, everything was perfect. They laughed, ate festival food, and watched fireworks explode across the night sky. Aiko leaned into him, her hand slipping into his, and he thought, this is it. This is what I want. But then Aya appeared. She wore a crimson yukata, bold against the night, her smile sharp as ever. She walked right up to them, ignoring Aiko's glare. "Mind if I join?" she asked, her tone daring anyone to refuse. Luca's heart sank. The three of them stood under the fireworks, and the tension was unbearable. Aiko's grip on his hand tightened, as if she feared he'd slip away. Aya, meanwhile, kept throwing him sidelong glances, her eyes challenging him to acknowledge the truth. And in that moment, Luca realized, no matter what choice he made, someone was going to get hurt. The fireworks boomed above them, scattering light across the night sky, but for Luca the world felt dark and heavy. Aiko's hand was trembling in his. Aya's gaze lingered on him like a flame daring him closer. Finally, Aiko broke the silence. Her voice was soft but firm. "Aya, this has to stop." Aya raised an eyebrow. "Stop what?" "Existing. You know what I mean." Aiko's lips pressed tight. "This isn't fair. To him. To me. To you." Aya's smile faltered. For once, her confidence wavered, but she quickly masked it. "I'm just being honest about what I want." "And what about what I want?" Aiko snapped, surprising even herself. "Do you care at all about that?" The sisters locked eyes, mirror images in clashing colors, blue and red, softness and fire. Luca stood between them, caught in a battle he had never meant to start. I can't do this here," he muttered. He pulled away, his chest tight. "Not in the middle of a festival." He left them standing under the lanterns, walking blindly through the crowd until the noise blurred into a meaningless hum. His mind was spinning. That night, Luca lay awake replaying everything. He had thought love was supposed to be beautiful, simple, a matter of two hearts finding each other. Instead, he was tangled between two sisters, identical in appearance but worlds apart in spirit. With Aiko, he felt steady, safe, cared for. With Aya, he felt alive, challenged, even a little dangerous. And deep down, he feared that choosing one meant losing part of himself. A few days later, Aiko called him. "Meet me," she said, her voice quiet but resolute. They met at a small park. She was waiting on the bench, hands folded in her lap. She looked calm, but her eyes carried storms. "Luca," she began, "I can't keep doing this. I need to know where you stand." His throat tightened. "Aiko." "No," she cut him off, though her tone was gentle. "I need honesty. Do you love me? Or are you just caught between us?" Her directness left him breathless. He wanted to say yes immediately, to reassure her, but the words caught in his throat. He hesitated, and that hesitation said more than anything. Tears welled in her eyes, though she tried to smile. "That's what I thought." She stood, smoothing her dress. "I love you, Luca, but I can't share you. Not with her. Aiko, wait." He reached out, but she stepped back. "I need space. Figure out what you want. But if you can't choose, then maybe you'll lose us both." She walked away, leaving Luca standing alone under the swaying branches. Not long after, Aya found him. It was as if she always knew where he would be, like she was tuned into his frequency. She leaned against a lamppost, arms crossed. "Let me guess," she said softly. "She gave you an ultimatum." Luca didn't reply. Aya walked closer, her expression unusually serious. "You don't have to feel guilty, Luca. You're allowed to want me." "That's not the point," he muttered. "Then what is?" she challenged. "That we're sisters? That it's messy? Life is messy. But what we have, it's real. You can't deny it." Luca turned away, running his hands through his hair. "I don't even know what's real anymore. Every memory I have, I keep wondering if it was you or Aiko." Aya stepped closer, her voice softer now. "Does it matter? You connected with me. You connected with her. Maybe that means your heart isn't broken, it's just bigger than you thought." Her words sank into him, dangerous and tempting. He hated how much sense they made in the moment. But he also knew love wasn't just about desire. It was about trust. And trust, once broken, was hard to rebuild. The three of them drifted in uneasy silence for days. Aiko kept her distance. Aya lingered at the edges of Luca's world, never far but never too close. Luca, meanwhile, wrestled with his conscience, torn between what he felt and what he feared. Until one evening, everything boiled over. Luca returned to his apartment to find both sisters waiting outside. Aiko stood stiffly, arms folded, her face pale but determined. Aya leaned casually against the wall, though her eyes betrayed tension. "We can't go on like this," Aiko said. "I agree," Aya added, for once not smirking. Luca's stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "You have to choose," Aiko said, her voice breaking slightly. "Now. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Tonight." Aya nodded. "She's right. This has dragged on long enough." The air between them was electric, sharp as glass. Luca's chest tightened. His mind screamed 1,000 answers, none of them clear. Aiko's eyes pleaded silently. "Choose me, love me, let this end." Aya's eyes dared him. "Be brave, admit the fire you feel, stop pretending." He opened his mouth, but the words tangled in his throat. The truth was, no matter who he chose, he would lose something precious. That night stretched into eternity. Luca paced his apartment after the sisters left, his thoughts colliding like waves in a storm. He remembered Aiko's quiet laughter, her gentle way of listening. He remembered Aya's teasing grin, the thrill of her boldness. Both of them were etched into him. Both of them mattered. But he couldn't have both. And so, for the first time, he forced himself to face the truth. He had to make a decision. Not tomorrow. Not someday. No. The next morning, Luca stood at the cafe where it all began. He texted both sisters the same message, "Meet me here. I need to talk." His heart raced as he waited, sipping a coffee he couldn't taste. Minutes later, they arrived, together, side by side, identical yet so different. "This is it," Luca whispered to himself. "The moment of truth." The cafe buzzed with morning chatter, but for Luca, the world felt like it was holding its breath. His hands trembled around the coffee cup, steam curling into the air. The door chimed, and there they were, Aiko and Aya, walking in together, identical in face but split by everything else. They sat across from him, silent, waiting. Luca cleared his throat. "Thank you for coming." Aiko folded her hands neatly, her expression calm but tense. Aya leaned back in her chair, one eyebrow raised, a faint smirk playing at her lips. Two sides of the same coin, staring at him. "I've been lost," Luca began. "When I met you, Aiko, I felt something I'd never felt before. You brought me peace. You made me believe I could be better." Aiko's eyes softened, shimmering with hope. Luca turned to Aya. "And then you came into my life like a storm. You challenged me, made me feel alive in ways I didn't expect. I can't pretend that didn't matter." Aya tilted her head, the smirk fading into something more vulnerable. "But I can't keep living between you two," Luca continued, his voice steadier now. "It's not fair to either of you. Or to me." Aiko leaned forward slightly. "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying I have to choose." The cafe seemed to go silent. Aiko's breath hitched. Aya's eyes glinted, sharp with anticipation. Luca closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them with resolve. He reached across the table, his hand trembling, and placed it gently over Aiko's. Her lips parted in surprise. "Aiko," he whispered, "it was always you. Even when I was confused, even when I doubted myself, it was you I was falling for. I don't want fire that burns me out. I want the light that guides me home. And that's you." Aiko's eyes welled with tears, and she clasped his hand tightly. A trembling smile spread across her face, fragile but radiant. Aya sat back, staring at them. For a moment, silence hung heavy. Then she laughed softly, sharp but not cruel. "I should have known," she said, shaking her head. "You always looked at her differently, even when you didn't realize it." Luca swallowed hard, guilt gnawing at him. "Aya, I never meant to hurt you." Aya's smile wavered, revealing the hurt beneath. "I know, and maybe I pushed too hard. But don't think I regret it. For a while, I saw a side of you no one else did. That means something." Her eyes flickered toward Aiko, softer now. "Take care of him. He's stubborn, but he's worth it." Aiko's voice shook as she said, "Aya." Aya stood, smoothing her hair. "Don't. I'm not going to make a scene. He chose. That's the end of it." She gave Luca one last look, a mixture of mischief and sorrow. "Just don't forget me too quickly, okay?" And with that, she walked out of the cafe, the bell above the door chiming her departure. The silence that followed was heavy. Aiko squeezed Luca's hand, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I was so afraid," she whispered. "Afraid you'd choose her. afraid I'd lose you. You won't, Luca said firmly. I promise. She leaned into him, resting her forehead against his. Then don't ever make me doubt again. He smiled, relief flooding him like sunlight after a storm. Never. For the first time in weeks, the knot in his chest loosened. He had chosen, and the world didn't collapse. In fact, it felt clearer than ever. The days that followed weren't perfect. Aya kept her distance, though Luca occasionally caught glimpses of her around campus, always with that same daring smile, as if reminding him she was still there, still part of his story. It hurt, but he knew he couldn't fix everything. Some scars had to heal on their own. With Aiko, though, things deepened. Without Aya's shadow looming, Luca rediscovered the simplicity that had first drawn him in. They spent afternoons in the cafe, evenings walking by the river, nights talking about dreams and fears. And slowly, trust began to rebuild. One night, as they sat on the riverbank watching the city lights ripple on the water, Aiko said, "You know, Aya isn't wrong. She brings out something in you I can't. But maybe that's okay. Maybe you needed to see both sides of yourself before you could choose." Luca thought about that, then nodded. Maybe. But I don't regret my choice. She smiled softly, leaning against his shoulder. Neither do I. Weeks turned into months. Their relationship grew stronger, steadier. There were still moments of doubt, still the occasional ache when memories of Aya slipped in, but Luca learned that love wasn't about erasing complications. It was about choosing, every day, the person you wanted to share your life with. And he chose Aiko. Again and again. One evening, back at the cafe where it all began, Aiko teased him. "Do you ever wish you'd chosen differently?" Luca chuckled, shaking his head. "Not for a second. Aya might have been the storm, but you're the calm after it. And that's what I need." Aiko's eyes glowed as she whispered, "Good, because you're what I need, too." They kissed then, gentle and lingering, sealing the choice he had made with something stronger than words. Aya drifted further out of their lives, but never completely. Sometimes Luca wondered what would have happened if he had chosen her instead, the fire, the thrill, the chaos. But then he'd look at Aiko, her smile warm and steady, and he knew he had chosen not just a person, but a future. A future built on trust, on honesty, on something real. And in the end, that was the love he wanted.